everyone. Welcome back to Womansplain, where we explore new trends in venture, consumerism, and social media. Thanks so much for listening. Today, we are going to talk about exclusivity and social clubs. And Sola here as a fellow Soho House member.
That's true.
We'll love to have you kick it off. Maybe talk a little bit about your membership and what made you join Soho House.
Yeah, of course. So I joined maybe 2 years ago now. I joined after the pandemic started. I had been going, I think, since I was in college. One of my best friends who, was a member a long time ago. And that was like when it was like super cool and exclusive. It still is very cool and exclusive, but that was in the beginning of, New York social scene, clubs. Like Zero Bond didn't exist yet. Costa Cipriani wasn't here yet. So I joined recently, and it's been great so far. I think for me, what the value prop is that it's all over the world. So it's really good for traveling. So like we love the Soho House on Miami Beach. And so we go there all the time. And I think what is really exciting about Soho House is they've been around for, I guess, 30-40 years. I think the first one was like in 90s that started in London, in Soho. But they've been doing really well in terms of having the right target demographic and just maintaining this aura of exclusivity, as we talked about, but also having curated experiences, making things very personal. So, I really like being a part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. And I feel like they also have great events as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of great events. And I think what really makes a social club this successful is having those events all the time. Like you're paying for the experiences. And so like every week I get a newsletter of all the events that are happening that week. I really go, but it's a lot of, people in venture, people in consumer, people in hospitality. There are a lot of talks too. So I went to one a couple years ago on like food and beverage. And that was before I had Nomo Salads, and met all these founders in this space. And, we still keep in touch, and I promote their brands. So it's a really good networking opportunity in space too.
That's awesome. No, I feel like there's just been a huge trend around social clubs generally, especially post-pandemic. Personally, I was a part of the Wing for a long time, and I really liked the Wing. It was great. They also did have really good panels. It was really specifically for women in business and finance consulting. It was a gorgeous space. They had great lattes and coffee and everything, but they actually went bankrupt during the pandemic, which I think obviously makes sense because it was literally for co-working. No one could go in and also their main they really think only really had locations in New York. So and there was such just exit of New York during that period, and they were relatively new. But what do you think kind of kept Soho House alive during the pandemic? I think that's pretty surprising.
Yeah, it definitely was surprising. And what I found really interesting is membership over the last couple of quarters have gone up 30% quarter over quarter.
Wow.
And when I applied, a lot of people were applying. And I remember maybe a year ago, I got an email saying that they're not accepting new members, which is pretty insane.
That's crazy.
They are opening a lot more clubs. And I know during the pandemic, they had lowered the price, I believe, but not so much. Members couldn't go use the spaces, but they were still paying maybe a half of what their dues were for these experiences that were digital. So I think it's also that thought of, you're applying to this thing. It's something that, you have to work on.
Yeah.
And then once you leave, you have to reapply, or you can't have that access anymore.
Totally. I think obviously it's pretty hard to become a member.
Yeah.
Often there's long waiting lists. You will usually have to have a lot of referrals, even if you are actually creative and in the space. It's competitive. So there is at least that sort of area being okay, you don't want to lose it, so it's worth to pay it so you don't lose it, versus somewhere you can feel you can easily rejoin.
Yeah.
And I know kind of going off this, there's so many kind of similar clubs like this. There's Cipriani now, there's the Aman Club, which, and the Aman hotels, which is pretty interesting. I actually read this article, which was so random, but that basically talked about this too, or he's basically owns a huge college counseling business that like caters to all of the like rich New York City elite children.
Trinity kids.
And like he's literally like this 35-year-old dude, and he started this company. It's doing great, and he does all of his meetings at the Aman Club, which I think is just so funny. Where I'm like, yeah, like of course you are. Like you're just like kind of getting us a lure of success, which makes you like the choice. Which I'm sure there's 100,000 college counselors, right? And like the reason he's so successful is because of that. And like I think Soho House is similar to that, where like it really does like give that allure,
right?
Versus like other ones that are maybe more work focused. I mean, they have Soho Works too, which I've been there a lot, and like I actually think Soho Works is pretty cool. But like I feel like it just doesn't match like Soho House, like I don't know, attractive quality.
So I think what's really important to do, and if you want to start your own club or looking at these successful clubs, is like you have to be really specific in who you're targeting. So I feel like what Soho House did well was like it's not just 20 somethings 30 somethings in metropolitan cities. It's like them also who enjoy art, who enjoy culture, who enjoy traveling. So you have to be very specific in who you're targeting, versus I feel like other clubs, like the Wing, for example, yes, it was female focused and it was work focused, but that was just kind of the common thread. Like there wasn't a very specific type of archetype that they were targeting.
Totally.
So I think that's, something that's differentiated.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the Wing just didn't feel like you couldn't rejoin. Like you could very easily join and unjoin, And like there also are just like, I also do think with that type of thing, it doesn't feel necessary to have a space. Like I feel like I'm a part of a lot of women's organizations that are great. Like Chief, like I love it. And like All Raise, like I'm part of their cohorts. And like that's the same thing, honestly. It's probably the same level of difficulty to get in. But the dues are like nothing. And really it's about just more like the network.
Yeah.
But doesn't feel like you need like a place to go.
Right.
Which like Soho House is different because you do. And they also have like you get access to the directory, right? Which I feel like
directory,
is a big deal.
Yeah. Like yesterday we were there working on this podcast on the launch. And when you sign in, you like sign in with your app, and then like I got like 3 follow requests on like my Soho House directory, which
that's
like
awesome.
has like my picture and like nothing else. It says like Brooklyn or something.
Whoa.
So it definitely is a really good way to network. And I think another reason that's doing well is like it targets all part of your life. It's not just like a social space. You go there, the menu is curated. It's the same around the world with the signature cocktails, like the picantes, the same menu, and like the chef's really great, as well as they have Soho House like hotels and like partner hotels. So I'm like I'm going to Stockholm for Taylor Swift, and she sold out every single hotel that weekend. And I'm like looking at my Soho House app, like, oh, I didn't realize there was a partner, hotel.
That's awesome.
So I think you really have to hit on all parts of, I guess, your lifestyle, not just like the social aspect. And like with this, you hit on the networking, the job, as well as the culture and just like the like coming together on doing something.
For sure. And no, I mean, they obviously have like and still been able to attain growth, which is really impressive. I mean, they recently had their earnings come out,
which wasn't great, but
they weren't great. But like, look, on a top line perspective, they grew membership. They were signing year over year. They are at like 300 million in revenue, and they are at like negative 42 million net income. But it's just such a hard business.
It's a hard business.
It's such a hard business, and it's so expensive to maintain. It's just like the amount of capex, the amount of just physical spaces, the amount of investment also they've been making. So I wonder, I mean, I'm sure like that's their argument. I feel like you were asked, the Soho House CFO, he's probably going to be like, look, we are investing in growth right now, which has been successful. Like, look at our amount of growth we've had considering our maturity, which is totally fair. But it's just such a low margin business. It's hard. It's really, really hard. But it's impressive they've been able to keep going. But there've been rumors too around being taken private, which in all honesty would probably be better for them. I think it's just really hard to put yourself under that level of scrutiny when you have that type of business, because like the just one Soho House's name is so emblematic that it's something that like people like us will talk about, right? And like that could lower their stock price versus like maybe a lesser known company like doesn't have that same level of scrutiny. And so I think if they are able to live more in a private sphere and maybe not really publish the amount of numbers they had to the point they have, and like also like the amount of just investment you have to just function as a public company, there's so much regulation, it would probably do better, honestly. And especially if like they were taken private by like honestly like a real estate fund, I think they could like help them a lot, and like or at least hospitality.
I was honestly surprised when they went public. It was during COVID.
I know, it was weird. I thought it was a weird choice.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though the markets were like booming in a weird way, like honestly, like nothing will ever touch 2020 markets, but like it was definitely like a weird choice. And I wonder if part of it was like maybe the plan was not to be public forever, and maybe it was like the plan to like be taken private in order to like honestly maybe just boost its name and like keep it like in the news so people maybe would keep their membership.
That honestly might have been the play, because that was a time when people were just kind of like, oh, like I don't want a membership, it's like not cool anymore, it's not very exclusive, so they were, you know, trying to be relevant in some way.
I know, which they did succeed, and I think a lot of it was through kind of a lot of these new clubs they opened. Like they have a new one in Miami now. They like bought like Scorpios, they bought like all this stuff, which is like pretty cool. Like they definitely did do a good job kind of like feeding into that market. And I would say the only other one, I mean, not very similar, but I guess is like New House has also done well. I think they've also kind of targeted more like honestly like entrepreneurs than creatives. Like that's definitely more their angle, and it is definitely a lot more work focused. They do have Chapel Bar, which is like interesting. I mean, obviously they're just way less difficult to, you know, they're only one location, so it's just like in order to manage that's a lot easier.
And same with Zero Bond. Like I think that's become really cool in New York, but that's also just one location, and I don't really know what their clientele is. Just like you know,
it's just not. It also just feels like what I understand New House because it's like work focused, and especially if you're like trying to raise money or find a partner, I feel like they have a lot of really good like honestly optionality for that. I don't think it's like really exclusive, but it's more about like, if you're trying to found a company, this is a really good place to be. And I feel that. I think, and that's awesome. And like, especially if like you don't have an office and you're starting up, I get it. It's like feels almost like what WeWork tried to do way back in the day.
R.I.P.
WeWork. But Zero Bond, I'm just like, it's just a bar. I'm confused.
I guess it's like a real life dating app.
So like Raya,
they're bringing Raya
like,
back.
But like I mean, speaking of exclusivity in other areas, like dating's another area that's tried to do that.
I think it's fascinating.
Which like Raya is obviously one. The League too, which was also started by a female.
I think they started this whole.
They did.
Yeah,
they totally did. Like she was like the CEO. I mean, they got bought by Match, but like she was like 29, 30. She was like
MIT.
She went to MIT or something.
Yeah.
She like I think worked at a different dating app. Very like kind of Whitney Wolf heard of her, and then started the League. And like I remember when it like came out, I mean, I did use it. I don't think I really used it much because I feel like what was weird about it is like the matches were so limited. Like you get like 5 matches a day. But I actually read that it was really popular with people who were like 45 plus.
Oh, interesting.
Which I thought would made a lot of sense.
That makes sense.
Actually, because like obviously people in like that age range, like there's a lot of single people in metropolitan areas, a lot of divorcees, like, you know, shout out to Tambo. But like honestly, like they're like they grew up on such a different generation that would make sense or comfortable to them to have a very limited amount of matches. Because the other one that's done well in that area is like eHarmony, and it's similar. So I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense, and maybe like why it became successful. Because I feel like for the younger people, we actually want more choice. Which is interesting
Which
too.
go both ways. I feel like in New York City too, there's just so many options.
There's so many options, and it's like why it's like people are perennially single here because there are so many options. Like the quality of people here is crazy, but it's also can be like overwhelming. So it's interesting. It's interesting. And I think obviously this idea of like social clubs and like members have also obviously expanded into restaurants.
Oh my gosh.
And like dinners and like experiences, curated experiences as well.
Yeah, it's impossible to get a reservation on a Friday, Saturday in New York unless you make it a month in advance.
Literally. And there's even like apps now like Dorsia that you have to pay to get a reservation. Like honestly, like kind of an exorbitant amount. Like I remember it first came out and I was like, wow, this is a great idea. And then I was like, wait, I have to pay $400 for one person like to get a reservation at
exactly. What do you I'm like, get? What? Like 4 bottles of like
how do
wine?
I even spend $400?
No, you can't. You literally can't. You can order every single thing on the menu.
And cannot spend $400. Yeah, literally. And I was like, but I mean, it makes sense if you like really, really want it. Or honestly, I'm sure there are plenty of people who use it for like work dinners.
Oh, 1,000%.
And they just expense it. Yeah. I get that. Because especially if it's like especially for a large group and you're trying to get a hot dinner, it's worth it. I get it.
For your client.
You're trying to land something, or you have a super hot date. I mean, like, whatever. I get it. But I'm like, I wonder if that business model is sustainable enough. I honestly do. Because I'm like, I mean, I guess LA maybe is the only other place that like.
I think it's LA, maybe Miami these days.
Yeah.
But like I think other than these 3 markets, there's definitely
it's just like nowhere else to go.
Like not even in LA. I feel like it's not that hard to get a reservation.
Just LA is just like bigger.
Yeah.
It has also like the restaurants itself are larger. Like there's just more space and more tables.
Yeah.
But there definitely are like super hot spots you can't get a res. Like I do get it. Yeah, exactly. Like just plenty of places, I'm sure, like similar idea to New York. But it is interesting. And then there's also like now these kind of curated experiences that can go on with it. Some that are like sponsored, like even like the Louis Vuitton like experience. And there's like all these things, which is relatively interesting. Or even we can say like honestly, like the Taylor Swift tour is just like the epitome of that. Like the amount that people would pay to go there.
Yeah.
Was crazy.
For just her.
I mean, she's fabulous. Like it's worth every penny. But it is crazy. Like even seeing like her Melbourne. Did you see the photo of her Melbourne tour?
Yeah.
I got literally 100,000 people.
Yeah. And they all got
sold out.
Such good songs. Not salty.
Like literally not salty. Yeah. Not salty.
I got Welcome to New York, so
I know.
I deserve to be salty.
Oh my God. No, but it's true. And like kind of continuing like into this restaurant idea. I mean, it is wild because I'm like, part of me, and like obviously it is responsive to demand, of course, and like kind of supply and demand. And if there's like less supply, there's more demand, and it goes around and round. But like, is that sustainable? And like, how do you really even like succeed in New York of like seeming super exclusive, especially when you're coming up?
Yeah.
And it's like, it is interesting. Like the restaurants that tend to be considered super hot are usually part of like a conglomerate. Like Teresi's, like the New Carbone, etc. Like, and it's very similar to that. Major food group. Like
Hand Hospitality.
You know, like a Ken McNally restaurant or whatever. Keith McNally, sorry. But it's like that, which is interesting. It's like how can one sort of capture that like demand and allure being new. And I think maybe So House is a good example, even though they're obviously huge now. They did do a really good job selecting who they keep
in the beginning.
I will also say this, like for a member club, So House is somewhat affordable for their group of people they target. Like it's obviously expensive, of course, but especially in their under 27 stuff.
That's a really good deal.
Like not a advertisement for them, but like seriously,
if you want to apply before 27 because it's so much
you get
cheaper.
it till like 30, right?
30,
and you're like, that's actually like that is like it's expensive, but if you're like in New York and you have a decent job, you could afford it. Honestly,
it's also like somewhere like New York where you literally can't get a reservation, and it's like Friday night you forget to get a dinner reservation, you can just walk into Soho House and eat dinner there.
Like,
it's always available.
And that is like they have done well. And I think there's also been like kind of a large growth of like these supper clubs too, where you have to be a member to get in. I mean, like Casa Cruz is one of them.
Casa Cruz,
even though like you can usually kind of get a res there. Sometimes it's hard, but like you can. Like for sure, we've gone a few times, which is like, great.
Carbone opened a private supper club in like I think they were opening it.
Interesting.
In like cool. Hudson Yards or somewhere weird.
I mean, I bet it's beautiful.
And you pay like whatever membership and you can just get in there whenever you want.
And I feel like honestly, I mean, there's obviously like in wellness space too, like Dog Pound is like a great example. Which I feel like Dog Pound is like pretty old school. Like, I mean, obviously they were like started in New York and LA, catering to like models and actresses pretty much. And for them, that was like almost like a safety feature. When like you had to pay a lot of money to even go to the gym there. And now it's like opened up more. It's like all over Miami, etc. But it's true. It's just sort of like you have to have like hit this bare minimum to even come here and work out.
It's like, why am I paying money to work out?
But also personally for me, like I'm the freaking opposite. Like I don't want to work out around hot people at all. Like that is the last thing I want to do.
Well, you don't get motivated.
I'm like literally I just want to be congratulated for showing up today. Like I do not need to be working out next to Emily Ratajkowski. Okay, like that's
I'd be so motivated. I'd be like, fine, I'll run like 14 miles.
Like
on
literally,
the
if I look like her, oh my god, so funny though.
But like workout classes too in New York are cool. Like I've been going to SoulCycle for a long time, and like there's all these celebrity instructors. Like Akin, he left, like made his own
thing, right?
Army. Crazy. It's a really good workout.
No, a lot of them become like influencers and stuff, and like bar classes too. Like I feel like I've been going to bar for a long time. And I used to go to this one on the Upper West Side, but she left, and now she does like remote. She has like her own remote subscription thing, which is like pretty good. Yeah, and she literally has a cult following.
Yeah.
It's like wild. And it's like all of these like Upper East Side moms. The Upper East Side moms just love them.
Love that. Yeah, and then like there's only a certain number of spots. So obviously
Literally.
you have to like fight at noon or whatever on Mondays to like get a spot. And like that's also another reason why I think these businesses are doing so well. Because like the supply is limited.
Supply is really limited, and to get like these really specific classes, it's hard, and that becomes like a word of mouth driver, and like also it like motivates these like obviously these instructors to make their class amazing and in like the highest of demand. Like I'm sure there's probably bonus structures to it. There have to be. If they're not, there should be. And like in order to drive like that level of demand, like for sure.
I wonder if this will work like in markets other than what we talked about, like New York, LA. Miami.
I mean, I'm sure elements of it do, because obviously like this idea of like exclusivity has been like the driver of advertising since the beginning of time, right? Like literally even going back to like cigarette advertising, like cigarettes were cool to smoke and like every celebrity did it and that's why everyone smoked, right? And like, oh, like you want to be cool, like you smoke, whatever. Or like even like alcohol ads are all driven by that. Like the most interesting man in the world. Like if you want to be the most interesting man in the world, drink this. And so like obviously that general allure of like being the it person, being cool, and obviously like influencers do that.
Yeah.
Like obviously like look at my wonderful lifestyle, buy this Charlotte Tilbury mascara and live my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So like obviously elements of it do. I think in terms of going out, it's really hard just because like one, like it's just preventatively expensive in most areas of the country to like even run an establishment like that. But then like two, it's just like the type of people probably aren't the right audience. Like I feel like you have to have just a lot of 20 and 30 somethings who like care, honestly, because I feel like
disposable income.
Yeah, disposable income, and also like probably single too, because a lot of that is like you want to meet the right people, be around the right people. But absolutely, I mean, like I'm sure like Silicon Valley has like elements of it for sure, right? Like I feel like like Peter Thiel and like his, the parties he would throw and like his like whatever, like their secret microdosing retreats, or like they're like a retreat in like Montana that like they do every year. Like there's elements for sure.
Burning Man.
Oh my God, Burning Man. Is like Burning Man even cool anymore?
I don't know, but I'm terrified of it.
I mean, too. Or I think or what was that thing that was like the fire?
Fire Festival. Yeah.
Fire Festival.
Yeah.
He went
Billy
to jail.
McFarland. No, he's back. He's out.
He's out of
He was
jail?
actually in one of my friends' Instagram stories yesterday.
Wait, does he want to come on the pod?
I could literally
I would
DM
totally
him.
interview him.
I had him on my show.
Really?
Oh, you did?
He was literally getting brunch with my friend yesterday.
Oh my God, what?
I'll DM him.
Well, I mean, honestly, he would be the expert. Like, yeah, the answer is it does work outside the market.
Right.
I think specifically in terms of like social clubs and going out, it's very New York and LA.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would be my theory.
I agree.
But no, I mean, there's other ways in like luxury fashion too. Obviously, like Bottega Green and everything. Like you want the unique thing.
Yeah.
It's such a weird human driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like kind of wrapping up, I think what Soho House did so well, why it's probably the most successful member club, I
agree.
would say. Most wide known, definitely most accessible in like its own way. Is it just it does a really good job kind of fitting its target market.
Right.
And really specific and has been sustainable for a long time.
And like very differentiated value prop, been around for a long time, focuses on personal experiences, curated experiences, while still maintaining that exclusivity factor.
And it has long-term customer loyalty, so it's done really well. But yeah, I think this has been great, guys. Really appreciate you listening and
listening.
Stay exclusive.